So we're very excited to talk to Facebook. Obviously, they made some news recently with the Facebook home phone, which I love to say. And we're bringing out Mike Schupfer, but we also have a special guest.
Yeah, you might notice we have an extra chair. We asked Corey, who led the Facebook Home project, to come so that he can talk really about how that came to be, because there's a fascinating story behind that.
So without further ado, Corey and Mike.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. How's it going? Thank you. Good to see you.
Oh. Well, thank you for coming. We're very excited you're here, and you're really rocking that earring situation. I really like.
Well, thank you.
So I always like a man in an earring. So to begin with, we're going to talk about a range of things. We're going to focus on the phone first. So I've been using this for a few days. I have an iPhone that I use more regularly, and I sometimes use an Android phone. And at first, I have three observations. At first, I was wildly irritated by it because it kept talking at me in a really irritating way that people you don't want to hear from call you up or bother you on the street. So first I was irritated, and then I started to realize I used it a lot. I started to really pay attention to it because there were actually some friends I did want to hear from. And then I started to use it a lot and use Facebook much more, something I don't use that regularly. I'm a much heavier Instagram and Twitter user. And then by the end, I realized I didn't use any of the Google products on the phone. It was a really interesting thing in that I mostly didn't use it to call, but I used it to sort of interact almost continually, and it became rather infectious in the way irritating things can be. So I'm just curious. My opening question that is, I don't want to know if you set out to be irritating, but the immersiveness is really quite interesting. And I, for the first time, I thought, wow, this is a really interesting way of doing this because it really does abrogate, forks Google in a way that it never had been forked before. That was my first thing because I wasn't using any of their services. So let's talk a little bit about the origins of this because it's a lot more than it was just born from like Venus from the clamshell kind of thing. Talk about what the history of what happened here with this phone and what you guys thought as you worried more and more about the mobile space.
Well, let me touch on one thing there, and then I'd love Corey. You know, Corey was the one who drove this project. I think my detailed management instructions for Corey were something along the lines of go fix mobile, and he executed well on that. So,
Management genius.
I know.
So I noticed you chose black, not blue or red.
Oh, this is what they sent me.
Oh, okay. Well, so I think the thing you touched on there that we're really excited about is that kind of those in-between moments. You know, you launch your Facebook app dozens of times a day on a normal phone. You're looking at your lock screen or pulling your phone out of your pocket probably hundreds of times a day. Mm-hmm. And one of the real awesome things about Facebook Home is it gives you an opportunity to see some great stuff in those in-between moments. When normally you're looking at a clock and a keypad, you're seeing what's going on in the world with the people you care about and can interact in that. So
well, not launching the app was what was interesting. It irritates me to launch apps too. I'm easily irritated, everybody. But I mean, the not launching of the apps was it was just there. It was present and persistent.
Well, I mean, it was really that trying to get that content first, and that apps are great, and they've kind of built this amazing ecosystem of stuff you can do. But we've talked for a long time of being people-centric, and content-centric and devices. And I think this was really our opportunity to show what that meant in a product, rather than just talking about it. Which is really the people you care about and want to communicate with are the first thing on your phone, and then apps are still the same number of swipes away. It's just we've kind of used this previously unused real estate for things.
So talk about the history of it way before this, because this was not what was first intended.
Well, sure. So the history was always about how do we make this experience that really flows through your friends and flows through people. And when you're trying to figure out how to accomplish that on a phone, there are basically three ways you could try to go about doing it. One, you could say, well, there's no OS that gives the ability to do this, so go build an OS. Second option would be dig into Android deeply and decide, well, is there a way to really fundamentally change Android, right? To fork Android and make it different. And the third direction would be to actually build an app on top of it. And during those explorations, really the most exciting moment for us was when we realized we could do this as an app and from app space, that Android's fundamental openness, its architecture for openness made this so possible. And it led to actually a really interesting meeting with Mark, because we went back into Mark, who had challenged us to go do this. And we said, well, we can do it as an app. And Mark's immediate response is, well, there's no way you can make an app that feels good enough. So no, it's just not possible. And it's so many things, being told that you can't do something is a really useful motivation at times. And so the focus then became, how can we make an experience that was incredibly smooth and really fluid and just feels good when you're using it?
And just to be clear, you guys looked at the full range and actually didn't just like consider them on a whiteboard and decide we're going to build Facebook Home. You guys really set out and tried out all these different things. Were you personally surprised by how much you could do without having to really touch the underlying layers of Android?
Well, so Eric was really kind and pointed out that we had actually read the documentation. And you know, what's amazing about open source is it's more than just reading the docs. You actually can go diving into the code. And what jumps out at you if you spend time deep in the innards of Android is how fundamental intents are to everything in Android. And that discovery, which I think really only happens if you do spend the time to really deeply work with Android at a bunch of different layers, led to what became Home, because we realized that we could do the home screen, we could do the lock screen, and we could provide these services and also do things like chat heads.
How far along were you on an operating system? You had gone down that path rather far, correct?
So the operating system path, I think, was probably the least fleshed out of the paths, just because, as Mark talked about on launch day, this is about reaching a lot of people. And even a phenomenally successful operating system, it's just hard to get to the kind of scale that I think is necessary for us. You know, I run mobile, so I feel responsible for hundreds of millions of people and them having a great experience. And even a really successful operating system would only change the experience for a few of them.
How concerned are you that, you know, Eric said he was happy and thrilled, but how concerned are you that their reaction to Facebook Home will be to like go back and look, how did they do all this, and you know, let's tighten a few rules? How concerned are you that you got to do what you wanted for now, but that the rules will change and you won't be able to do that down the road?
Because just FYI, they smile right before.
So I think that fundamentally that the product developers at Google are trying to do the same thing we are, which is to build amazing products that people really love. And building an experience on Android that is incredibly high quality. And I think to a lot of people, you read a lot of sort of iPhone users engagement, reviews of Home, and the first response is that this is possible on Android. And so I think that's fundamentally good. I think they're excited about more folks coming onto Android trying to build incredibly high quality apps.
Now, you guys have said you want to do this, you want to build the best experience you can on all the platforms that are out there. I think a lot of people are wondering, what of what you guys did on Facebook Home can you bring to, say, the iPhone or other devices that people use?
Yeah, I mean, we're really committed to trying to frame up the kind of explorations we did on all these different platforms. The goal from the beginning, as Corey said, was always get this experience into everyone's hands, no matter what device you choose to use. And so as part of that and our general focus on mobile, we're shortly going to be announcing an update to our iOS app, which brings chat heads, that immersive chat experience that allows you to get messages without interrupting what you're doing straight into the iOS app. So the same experience where you get multiple messages, multiple threads, allows you to respond and get them without interrupting your Facebook experience when you're in the app. Same design on iOS as well.
So do you have to be in the app? It doesn't just, the bobbleheads, chat heads don't just appear suddenly, or do they appear right over the app?
You have to be in the app, and yes, they appear over the app just as they do
over the app, but not the way they do.
And that's a limitation of iOS.
Right.
Yeah, we use standard notifications on iOS, but you can't draw across other apps when you're not running in the foreground.
And when are you rolling that out?
It'll be coming out this week, I believe.
It's probably getting pushed to the store right now.
Okay,
So
all right.
it was already approved and ready to go.
Chat heads on iOS. But getting back to how far you can carry this out, Microsoft, the same thing, you want to be able to take over that system or do more of what you're doing on Apple?
I think we want to provide a great experience. So it's not about taking over and any of these things. I think, Home was really our ability to demonstrate by driving the whole experience. Here's what we think we can do when you really own and control the whole experience. But we're working closely with Apple, with Microsoft, with everyone to try and get as good and Facebook people-first experience you can on all of these devices.
But getting back to Ina's questions about the relationship with Google, do you feel this is a rapprochement with them, or you're just waiting to see what the reaction? Because I have to say, that's the one thing that did strike me is I didn't use Google products, and you could easily shift the search thing if you decided to, and I would be with that. I would follow with whatever Facebook had. This really, truly takes over the phone in a way that it's almost like a blanket over most of the Google services. Even though they're there, they're harder to get to, and you tend to interact with it's like a super app. I'm not sure what to call it,
Yeah, I mean, the apps are still one swipe away, so there's no direct intent to kind of make these things harder to launch at all. I think it's just you get lost in the content when it's
Right.
there first, which is kind of put the most important immersive thing the fewest number of swipes away. I think it's good product design, so on mobile devices at least. So I think we're focused, as Corey said, on trying to build great experiences on all these devices, and if it creates a great experience that you can get on Android that drives usage, buying, adoption, engagement across the Android devices, that's probably good for Google. So I mean, you'd have to ask Eric the question again, but we're hopeful that the interests are aligned in terms of building great products that people actually want to use and buy.
And the relationship with Google now overall, that's always been sort of more tense over the many years, and it has waxed and waned over the years. Do you feel like this is a positive thing for the relationship, or that will possibly cause more problems?
I don't think it changes the fundamentals of the relationship. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of mutual respect from the companies, a lot of talent that's flown between, a lot of the engineering team at Facebook is former Google.
Yes, we noticed that.
And
that wasn't something that was happy.
Yeah, they didn't
Google.
donate them.
They didn't donate.
Folks.
Let us give you all these fine executives. So many more.
That may have been a low point in the relationship
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons,
Yeah.
but which I understand. I think there's a lot of mutual respect and a lot of people who like each other across the companies, and we're both, again, trying to build great experiences across these different devices. So I don't think that this particular product changes our relationship fundamentally.
Corey, when I look at Facebook Home, I was struck by two things, and I had this kind of divide in my head. One is I was surprised at how much you were able to do while still following the letter of the rules and use all the Google services. But then I was also struck by all the other apps that you didn't touch, the camera, the dialer. It strikes me that there are other things you guys could do within the constraints or within the openness of Android. How much is this a starting point versus an end point for you guys?
Yeah, so this is completely a starting point. What's great about how we develop for mobile now is we roll all our products every month. And so the first update to Home is coming in second week in May. And
What will that be?
The next set of features. We're not going to talk about it.
So do you take over the camera first, then the dialer, or is it the other way around?
Well, I think both of those are interesting options. The intent system opens those up. There are two intents around sort of dialer and receiving calls. There's a default camera intent. One of the challenges there is every camera in Android is a little bit fiddly and different. We wanted to make sure that what we rolled out at the launch was an incredibly high quality experience. It's part of why just today we're going to be opening up to the rest of the world. So we launched only in the US because we wanted to make sure that we could sort of iron out any remaining bugs as we launched. We've had the few days to do that, so now we're going to open up to the rest of the world. And that's really our whole approach, is that each subsequent release, keep making sure that it's available on more devices, is more capable, and does more for you.
Do you imagine a point where you would do search, that would be the Facebook search going in there?
I mean, we have graph search on the desktop, which I think is useful for an interesting set of queries. And I think that the other thing about the product release cycle is one of the things we're really proud of in Home is it, I think, sets a new quality and design bar. As Corey said, it was a very conscious decision to limit the scope and do a few things and really nail it. I mean, if you look at the feedback on it, no one's saying, oh, it's jittery or crashy or has bad. Everyone says, wow, I'm surprised the battery life is great. This is really well designed. And check out how fast these animations are, even on modest hardware. And that was, I think, a new high point for us. When Mark talked about the company transition from mobile, it was, first make our apps not embarrassingly bad, and get them up to a reasonable level of quality.
Phrase it with yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, there was a
Don't
period
You
of
didn't
time.
use those language.
I didn't see that on the.
We
have,
use probably stronger language, I think, internally.
I think I put up that slide internally, actually.
Yeah.
Don't suck.
I don't think the word was suck.
Okay.
But, so,
Facebook is really well known for its posters all over the campus. I haven't seen that one yet, but.
yeah, so it was kind of get them to a reasonable quality bar that people demanded and expected of us, fairly so. That was stage one. And this is kind of stage two, which is, okay, now that we have a good baseline technologically and have a good team, let's now take the design forward. Instead of just this infinite scrolling feed, what are the other things we can do? Bring the messaging experience through the entire device, bring your content to your lock screen in this kind of immersive, very visual form. And there's much more of that to come.
So what do you look at Facebook now? Is it now a mobile company? That's how, are you now dubbing yourself a mobile company, or do you feel like the desktop, from a technological point of view, is still important? It's obviously still important.
It's still, I mean, we build on mobile, we build on desktop, we we talk a lot about Android and iOS here, but we build on feature phones with a J2ME app. So we build a website where thousands of devices hit it, every single day on a range. So we kind of try to go where the people are and where people want to access it. And I've been at Facebook for 5 years, and well before the huge gold rush into mobile. And even back then, Mark always called it a technology company. And he would say, we built it on the web because that happened to be the technology was best suited at the time. But if there's a different, better technology, we'll adapt to that.
Have you stopped desktop development, really, or where do you see that going, if at all?
No, we haven't stopped. I mean, people still use, lots of people, millions, hundreds of millions use it on.
Many people still dial up to AOL, but it doesn't mean they're.
But you want to provide a great experience, and we sit at, we have computers and phones, at work, and we use it on both devices. So even ourselves use it there.
What does it mean to be mobile first? I mean, how has that changed what you guys are doing, particularly for you, Mike? I mean, as in charge of engineering, how does being mobile first, what does that really meant in practical terms to how you divide your engineering resources, to the kinds of products you're focused on?
I mean, I want Corey to jump in and talk about a lot of the technological work he's done there, but I'll touch on two things first, which is just, organizational. So we have a system where every new engineer who comes and joins the company, anyone in engineering at any level of seniority, goes through boot camp. And it's a 6-week onboarding where you kind of get to learn all the different technology stacks at Facebook and get to kind of experiment and write code all throughout the stack. And I give an onboarding lecture the first or second week of everyone's kind of joining the engineering team. And when we first kind of embarked on this journey, we literally built a slide for the very end of this presentation, which had a picture of a laptop with a big X through it and said, not this, and a picture of a phone with a big thumbs up next to it, and said, if you're building it for the web, you're doing it wrong. And so that was the kind of the beginning of the very strong messaging to the company that mobile is really the future of it, because we wanted to drive the company hard in that direction. And then it involved hiring. We've been very fortunate to get lots of experienced Android and iOS talent. You're seeing some of the fruits of their labor in the quality of home and in the quality of our iOS apps. And then it involved retraining in certain cases. We've Corey has set up a program where hundreds of engineers have gone through a week-long either iOS or Android training, and those classes are always it's optional and they're always sold out because everyone wants to go to them and learn more. And it involved a lot of things in terms of our release process and technology, and I don't know if you want to touch on some of those.
Well, I think broadly the change was we used to have mobile as a completely separate part of the org, and they did the mobile work and everybody else did everything that wasn't mobile. And when you look at Home, which is a really cohesive app, right? It really makes a lot of sense together. What probably isn't obvious is that was probably a dozen different teams working together to build this technology. Every group, whether it's the photos group or the feed team, are responsible now not just for the desktop piece of what they do, but the mobile piece. And you see that, like with the feed design that rolled out, there were a bunch of mobile influences in that, and then there are ideas from that redesign that are actually in the iOS app that launches today. The feed design is actually now consonant with the version that we had rolled out on desktop before. So there's now this interchange of ideas flowing back and forth from desktop to mobile.
So is it a home company now? Is everything oriented around home at this point? I mean, a lot of the development and Instagram, all of the different things seem very tied into it.
I think it's all oriented around mobile. I mean, Home is an imagining of an awesome, engaging mobile experience, but there are lots of other surfaces, Instagram, iOS, on mobile web where, again, thousands of people on different devices visit every day, or thousands of devices visit hundreds of millions of people. So, we're kind of focusing on all of those, and I think that the point at which we know we made this transition is when I had to stop using that slide because it just seemed funny after a while. Like you didn't actually give the message anymore because everyone realized we're a technology company focused on mobile.
And do you, how important is Instagram to this home effort? It's now in there, but it's not quite as out front as I expected it to be.
We're, really, really thrilled to have Instagram as part of the family. I mean, it's almost exactly a year now since we had a long weekend in Mark's house with
Easter.
Kevin. And we, spent a lot of time with Kevin that weekend. And, at one point,
a whole weekend to do $1 billion deal. That must be.
I know. Well, You know, it's not the paperwork that's the important part. It was really,
No, I know.
no, I think it's, you know, a lot of what I think Mark in particular was looking for is just how committed was Kevin to his vision of his product. And how much of this was Kevin was going to continue to drive a really engaging user experience and really think about people first in his product and not just like, sweet, I sold a company as a milestone.
He did say that, but go ahead. Sweet.
Yeah, sweet. So I think that, yeah, so Instagram is hugely important. We've been thrilled with, you know, it's grown unbelievable. I think a lot of people thought we were crazy when we did the acquisition. I think we'd do it again in a heartbeat, knowing what we know now.
One of the key questions, not just for you guys, but I think everyone in the audience, there's no question the eyeballs have moved mobile. But you know, we saw this with the web too. You know, everyone moved to their computers away from traditional media long before the ad dollars caught up. And it seems to be a similar challenge for mobile. The eyeballs are moving to mobile way faster than the business models are catching up. And I know you guys are on the engineering side, but part of that has to be building products that engage well with ads. How much are you guys looking at video advertising and all these different things, which I know you guys are looking at video advertising in general? How much are you guys looking at new ways beyond a tiny little banner and stuff?
It's interesting because in this, follow up on that, especially the video ads, which I think will be more useful here. But I didn't see one ad in using any of this. I mean, not one gay cruise offer at all in my entire, which I get like 50 of them a day on regular Facebook. I'm never going to take a gay cruise, by the way. So where are those? Where do those fit in? Is it video? Is it you trying not to laugh, but it's true. And also freedom rings, which I don't want either. So where are the ads coming in?
You know you want to, Kara.
What?
You know you want to.
What I do? No, I really don't.
I'm just sitting here imagining the first D Cruise conference.
Right, exactly.
Like, check out my rings.
With rings.
So where is the advertising in this, especially the video ads, which could do very well on a phone?
Well, I mean, you've seen us take a $0 billion, you know, a quarter business
Right.
to very fast growth on mobile, you know, just last year. So in the, you know, first quarter of last year, we did no revenue on mobile, and by the fourth quarter, we're reporting quite a bit of revenue on mobile, both in absolute dollars and as a percentage overall. And I think if you look where these things are going, you know, a lot of our focus has been on newsfeed as a surface for ads. And I think on mobile, we're particularly well positioned there because you have an opportunity where I'm scrolling through a ton of content, right? And we're making decisions every day about the best content to show you because there's way more stuff going on than we can get to you in, you know, in the 3 minutes you're going to look at your phone. And we try to make those decisions based on what we think you're going to be most interested in, right? And so it's natural to weave hopefully something slightly more interesting than the ads you're getting there into your content there. And it becomes a, you know, very non-disruptive because I can scroll past it if I'm not interested, or if I'm interested, then I can engage on it right there.
And is video ads the most important part of this? Or you're starting to show those to Madison Avenue, is that correct?
I think we're looking at all different formats for ads, and you know, video is obviously an interesting way to create an emotional kind of reaction in terms of building a brand, and so I think that's an important part of a long-term ad strategy. But you know, I think that the ability to have this place where people are spending time on their device, and you can build ad experiences that don't look like, oh my God, get this thing out of my way, but hey, that's actually interesting content, has been the focus of us for a long time, and I think is really promising in terms of what we can do on mobile.
And lastly, before we get to audience questions, we're slightly over. You guys went through a very difficult IPO. I think I'm being polite there. Very rocky IPO, and all of a sudden I've noticed lots of stories about Facebook's back. Aren't they fantastic? Things are really cooking. How do you feel of that? And it's a very short time frame where that happened, about a year, exactly the same thing. What's it like now to bring technology people in when you did have that down, up kind of thing, and it's still sort of moving upwards?
Yeah, I think you can directly measure the kind of mood and barometer of the company by how quickly we're shipping products and how good they are. And I really mean that. I think that coincident with that period of time was when we were really getting our footing on mobile. You know, we had released the iOS rewrite in the fall of August of just last year, summer of last year. And Android kind of took some catching up there too. And that was just like make it really fast and stable, but no new features. And you know, getting this whole organization over to mobile was, I think, a much bigger deal in terms of the emotional impact of people inside and how they felt. Because fundamentally, people come, and when we both come to work every day, we like shipping stuff to people that they enjoy. Like that really is the reward, the joy, the emotional joy we get out of work. And when we're not doing it, or we're doing it poorly, is when we're really, really upset. And that's kind of a period we were when we were kind of getting our footing on mobile. And I think you see a lot more smiles and excitement and energy around the office, and it's because not just the products we've launched, but now we're on this like, okay, we just launched Home, now here's the new iOS app, with a whole bunch of new features, probably our biggest release since we rewrote it, and boom, like 3 weeks later, here's another update to Home and Android. And you can just see the kind of the engines throttling up as we get better and better at launching mobile.
And what's next after that? Tablet version? What? Are you working on that, Corey?
We said we'd actually tested Home on tablets. It's a great experience on tablets.
Is it different?
Sorry?
Is it different?
We think that we might have to make some tweaks to it to make it really good on tablets, which is why we didn't open it up to tablets. We really wanted to be focused on making sure this was an awesome experience. And so we liked the tablet experience. We think it's going to work really well. But we wanted to make sure we had the time to make it great.
Okay.
Feel free to start lining up
Questions
behind
from the
the
audience?
microphones. But I did want to ask, because almost all the mobile discussion has been iOS and Android. And this is a question I ask developers all the time. Like, is there another platform out there that really has enough traction to devote significant resources to? You guys are on lots of them. You're on BlackBerry, you're on Windows Phone, but my sense is that most people are still devoting the lion's share of their resources to iOS and Android. And I'm curious, is there anyone that's a clear number 3?
Well, we view the mobile web as the clear third platform. Thousands of devices a day, as Shrup said, come to that. I think we certainly keep watching emerging platforms. We've actually modified our mobile website to make sure it works really well, both on Firefox OS and BB10. And I think that's sort of our first line of engagement with those platforms. And then as they grow or they have capabilities that we think really map well to our products, then we'll engage with them.
Are you going to overlay Google Glass soon? Is that your next thing? No? Can you do that? You think of doing things like that eventually?
What do you mean by that?
Like a glass kind of thing, a wearable, a glass kind of, that kind of product?
I think technology evolves, and as people adopt, we'll kind of see whether people want to run around with something on their face or not.
I mean, everyone else is becoming a devices business. Everyone else is becoming a devices business, rumored to be getting into watches and stuff. You guys have been pretty clearly not a devices business. Do you imagine yourselves being a devices business?
Do you want
at some
Facebook
point?
on your face, really?
No, so we make software, right? We make software and we try to make the best possible experience on whatever platforms are open to us.
But yet, Facebook on your face. What? Yes? No?
It's not the best idea I've heard.
Okay. All right, with that.
Hi, my name's Harrison. I write for The Next Web. Recently, we and other publications covered low reviews in Google Play. And I just checked, and half of the reviews for Facebook Home were 1 star. And so I know the star rating system isn't perfect, but do you have a comment on why the reviews would be so low?
Well, I think that we set out to build a great product, and it's one that we're really excited about. And if you look at the 5-star reviews, there's a big cohort of folks who are really jazzed by what we released, are engaging with it, and are psyched to have it. I think we look at the lower reviews, and that's opportunities for us to make the product better and to make sure that it's an experience that meets their expectations and needs as well.
So you don't think it's the Google Plus team just going, darn it, darn it, darn it?
I think that's unlikely. That would be hilarious.
It's just Vic Condotra, just by himself. Sorry.
Yes.
Hi, Mike. This is Tom Kadis, CEO, founder of Voxer. Just a quick question for you. Actually, well, first of all, I think what you guys have done with Home is really interesting, very innovative, and I applaud you for it and for the aggressiveness of it.
Thank you.
And in general, in mobile, you guys have really been doing impressive things. Right now, Home is still quite small relative to the larger ecosystem. My question is around sort of what happens if it's successful for every other app company. You guys sort of pushed all other apps to the background to a layer down, and you've rewritten notifications, which I understand work differently in the HTC phone versus if you install the app directly. And just sort of wondering, sort of if Home is successful, what happens to the rest of us out there that are building apps?
Yeah, it's a great, and thank you. It means a lot coming from someone who I think built a great product. So, as I said earlier, when you fire up the phone, you see the content on it, but the apps are the same number of gestures away as they are on other devices, and it's because there's a lot of cases where I actually need to get directions to something, or want to look something up, or call someone, and these are all activities that you obviously want to do on the device. So, my hope would be that what we're trying to do with this is fill time that was otherwise wasted in terms of just kind of staring at the device, but the time you're actually going to launch and engage with an app doesn't actually materially change, for these things. But as with all products, we have to see as people adopt it and how they use it.
Although even though it is a swipe away, I couldn't even find the Google desktop, the Android desktop. I mean, I didn't even look for it, which is interesting because I think it's not, I'm not saying it's disingenuous, but you really do. It's very immersive, and I didn't touch any other app except for Facebook apps, which was interesting.
Well, I mean, it was a stated goal to make the content immersive.
Right.
So that's like mission accomplished if we got you in there, because that's what we hope people are interested and fired up about. But if you fire, push your finger down and bobble, the top upward swipe is apps, and it's an app launcher that
Right.
you can put whatever you want, on that tray, and there's the apps you want to use right away. So we really did, intend to make that part easy because, as Corey said, it's not a complete experience. You can't do everything you want to do right now in home.
Right, but you could have a phone, a Facebook, a calling, the dialer, everything could be. I mean, I was imagining if you were a heavy Facebook user, you wouldn't go anywhere else. You wouldn't.
Well, I think that, a mistake a lot of companies can make is they decide that because they're good at one thing, they think they can go do everything, and they want to just get, building microscopes because we also build microprocessors and somehow those are related, right? And like Intel actually did that, and it didn't work out so well. Like they're killer at microprocessors and RAM and many other things. So not so great at kids' toys. Like, I think that similarly, we really want to focus on the things that we really are good at. And so it's really the question of like, what does us doing it and integrate with it improve about the experience? And if like there's nothing social to add to calling someone, then we're not going to mess around with it.
I think what interesting implication of this will be, I think the apps guys, one, because of the loss of real estate, and two, because they'll see how much you were able to do with home. I do fear there will be this rush among the apps makers to go, we got to create a skin, we've got to be the home screen. You spent a lot of time investigating different approaches. Would you caution app developers that maybe the best idea for Joe app is not to create the Joe app immersive experience that kind of mimics what Facebook Home does?
Well, because you can't have an immersive experience just to have an immersive experience, right? One of the design principles with Home was for us to get out of the way. There's a reason there's no big Chrome or F in the user experience. What's there is what your friends are doing and what they're sharing. And it's sort of like Shrep was saying, as we think about other parts of the experience, the filter is, does this connect you with your friends and their content better? Not, is that some part of the device?
Certain companies could do this. Yahoo years ago did Yahoo Go, which had a lot of their services in there. It just was so heavy at the time, and you had to fire up the app, and it kind of was glitchy, but it was a conceptual idea. So Troy Carter yesterday was saying Lady Gaga has certain fans or certain artists that you could really immerse yourself in those worlds. So you could see copycats all over the place.
You could. I mean, we're certainly not going to tell anyone what to do with their own apps. I think one of the awesome things about technology is innovation, happens because people do what they think is best for their products. But I think that someone said yesterday that consumer perceptions of quality or expectations for quality have gone up a lot on mobile, and I think that's incredibly true. So I think that even we're looking at this, making sure that if you do something that big on a device, you need to make it really good.
Hi. Amy Pascal, Johnson & Johnson. You talked about creating products that users love, but I don't see that as much on the advertising side, especially coming off the heels of some of the recent news around video takeover ads, and as well as advertisers being able to send messages on mobile when their home screens are even locked. So I'm wondering perhaps it's another group, I'm not sure, that is developing those solutions, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your philosophy, if it's the same around advertising versus other types of products.
Yeah, this is where I think having a founder, CEO, technologist in charge of the company is really helpful for us, because I think that Mark is the arbiter of product quality across the company, and I think we're always trying to make sure that we're building products that people like and are building a healthy, sustainable business, both for our investors and so we can invest on R&D and what we need to do in the long run, and trying to get those both right is what we're trying to do. And so there are a lot of places where we basically show fewer ads or don't show ads or do other things like that because we think it's not the right user experience. And so I can't say we get it right absolutely every single time, and we certainly need to improve Kara's targeting a little bit. But I
did like the goat screaming at Mark Zuckerberg ad a lot. I have to say that.
That's good.
Did anyone see that?
Did people like the goat or not?
I
Yeah?
want a goat.
Okay.
Anytime a goat screams at Mark Zuckerberg, I'm pretty happy.
So I think that, it's something that's evolving over time, and as I think we get, part of the power is we get more advertisers using the system, we get, more inventory of ads, you see better, you have a better pool of things to pull from, that gives you better content to look at in those cases. So we're working on it.
Hi, Lance Ulanoff, Mashable. You mentioned chat heads on iOS, and I guess I'm very curious about how that experience is going to differ. Is it going to work in such a way where the chat head is really persistent the way it is on the Android phone? And what does that mean about what you were able to do as far as iOS? Because the conversation we hear is Android's open, iOS is closed. So could you describe it a little bit?
So the experience is chat heads within the Facebook app. So iOS doesn't give hooks to be able to be persistent across the entire device. So it's an experience everywhere within the Facebook app. So as you're navigating around within the Facebook app and following links or looking at notifications, it persists in that way. And it's the same interface, it's the same physics, it's the same feel.
But that's incredibly limited, right? I mean, that's not the same experience. I've used the Facebook phone or Facebook Home, and the power of it is how it's everywhere. It's truly persistent. So this is a truly limited experience. And did you talk to Apple about that? About the fact that you would really love if this bobblehead follow people
Sorry.
everywhere?
You think Apple's really going to let them have bobbleheads?
Well, when you
all
talk
over
to them, I mean, are they open to
Did
the
you
idea
try?
of letting you guys have more control?
So I think we talked to Apple because they're a great partner with us, and we always are looking at how to make products better. What's different fundamentally about the two operating systems is on Android, when you have an idea like this, you can just go and do it. If you want something that requires fundamentally different hooks in the operating system like you would need in iOS, now you're waiting on their cycle of operating system revisions. And so it's just a much longer lead time. And to the point about whether this is limited or not, well, it is within the Facebook app, and you still pick up the ability to be able to sort of multitask between looking at feed and chatting with your friends and seeing what's going on. And certainly the multi-chat experience works extremely well in this situation. So we think it's a great UI for chat.
Okay, thanks.
But did you even ask them? Did you even ask Apple to put the bobbleheads, or instead of the chat heads, I call them bobbleheads, I'm sorry. Did you even ask them to put it on the screen persistently? Or you just didn't want to go there with them?
I think it's more a discussion about how do we make a great product experience.
But did you ask them to do that? Did you ask them the ability?
Well, we know what their lead times are, so you only ask for things that have some possibility of landing in a useful
Do you imagine
time.
the possibility they'll let you have those heads wandering all over their screen?
I think that's a great question for them.
Well, I'm asking you. Are you even going to ask that? I mean, are you even going to hope for that?
Am I going to hope for that?
Yeah. Mike, are you going to hope for that?
I think,
you
Apple's
want
a great
every
partner. We both have a lot of products we built together. I don't think we can talk about, which conversation we had or whether it's going to happen. So
So
I
they
think
said
we're pretty
if you
excited
talk about it, you definitely won't get it. You probably won't get it anyway, but if you talk about it, you definitely won't get it.
Well, I think it more comes down to, is this a great way to experience chat?
Right.
And this is something that's really new. We've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're just in the early stages of getting this out. It's why it's out for anybody who gets Facebook Messenger on Android. And we want to make this as available as possible and see how folks, and people end up using this.
Yeah, it's interesting because all I can think of is, can we please put this fantastically colorful vase in the middle of our minimalistic white house? I don't think they're going to let you, but that's okay. That's a good. I hope you try to do it. In any case, thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you guys.
And we really appreciate you being here.